Hey folks, I'm Jesse with Carolina Whitetails, and I appreciate you joining us for another episode of Indoors Edition. We have a really cool guest today, and I can guarantee that you'll learn some valuable information that you'll carry with you in the deer woods. My guest has over 30 bucks in the Michigan record books that he killed on public land or either just knocking on doors and getting permission. He's killed 19 Pope and Young bucks outside of Michigan. So it's safe to say he knows deer and how to hunt them successfully. And I think you'll learn something from listening to him. My guest today is John Eberhart. John, how's it going, man?
Going very well. How's yourself?
Good,
It's
man.
going pretty good. Busy. I'm also a sales rep in the hunting industry, and sales right now we're just through the damn roof on guns and ammunition.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from?
Yeah, I'm from Michigan. I started bow hunting in the mid '60s, and as you said, I've got 31 bucks in Michigan record book with my bow, and 19 from out of state. So I've got exactly 50 bucks in the record book, and I've shot a lot more than that, obviously, and lots of does for the freezer. But kind of what separates, I think, what I've done from, I can't think of another hunter in the country that's got 50 record book bucks that are from public land and knock on doors for permission exclusively. Obviously all the TV guys, they kill 4 or 5 a year, but they're hunting zoo type properties, micromanaged properties where, deer bucks come out into open short crop fields and food plots. And Michigan's the most heavily pressured state in the country on the bow hunting side. We have more bow hunters than any other state. And bucks here just don't do that. Everything is security cover oriented. They just don't walk into open food plots and, pick cornfields and hay fields. That just does not happen in daylight hours.
Well, can you tell us how you discovered?
It's just totally different hunting and pressure.
How did you discover deer hunting, and how did you get interested in deer hunting?
My family did not. My dad, and none of my uncles bow hunted. So bow hunting was something that, there was kids in school that their families hunted, and they deer hunted. So I was always interested in deer, but because nobody hunted, it wasn't a big deal to me when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. But when I got into, junior high, these kids were coming back with their stories from their uncles killing deer and stuff. And I was walking through Ypsilanti, which is a medium-sized city in southern Michigan, and I walked into this archery shop. And keep in mind, this is back in recurve days. This is in the mid '60s, way 10 years before compounds were ever out. And the owner of the store was actually shooting. He was in there by himself. He was the only one in the store, and he was shooting a PA round, which was a 3-inch bullseye in a blue target, white bullseye in a blue target at 20 yards. And that was the popular target round at the time, was PA round. And he was draining that bullseye at 20 yards. I mean, he'd sit it every single time. And I'm a 13-year-old punk kid, and I don't know this guy from Adam. I just walked in the store, and I said, "Man, I said, do you deer hunt?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "You must kill a lot of deer." And he said, "Son," and you got to keep in mind, back then, 1 or 2% of bow hunters killed a deer with a bow. It wasn't anything like today because they didn't have deer. But he said, "Son, I've shot at 6 deer, and they were all closer than that 20-yard target, and I have yet to touch the first one." He said, "When you put fur on it, I lose it." And and that just wanted me to do it even more. It was just exciting to me from the kids in school. And he sold me a 45-pound Ben Pearson recurve, which I struggled to draw back at the time. So even though it was 45 pounds of 28-inch draw, I was probably drawing it back 24, 25 inches. So I was probably shooting it at about 37, 38 pounds. And I actually shot a few deer with it. I shot a big mature doe with this guy that kind of took me under his wing, took me out in public land, and his name was Leroy. And he kind of went down, and he put me in a stand in the morning before daylight, and he went down in the swamp, and he said, he told me after he put me in the stand, when I say stand, I was standing on a 2x4 in a tree. Okay, that's a tree stand back then.
Yeah.
Or standing in a crotch tied to the tree with your bow rope. And he said, well, when you get down, if you want to walk back here to that swamp, just sit under a pine tree or sit under there's some pines, just sit there and wait for me to come out of the swamp. And he said, don't go in the swamp looking for him, because he was going to probably hunt later than me. So I got down about 10 o'clock, walked back there, and I sat on my butt underneath this pine tree, white pine, so the branches above me were, kind of dead for ways. And I'm sitting on my butt with my legs on the ground. And this big doe come busting out of the swamp, and she stopped right in front of me at about 17 to 20 yards and looked back into the swamp. So I knew Leroy was coming out. He scooped her out of the swamp. And I couldn't hold the bow upright and shoot normal because obviously it's a 62-inch bow and the branches are in the way, plus so is the ground because I'm sitting on my butt.
Right.
And I turned the bow damn near parallel to the ground, and I drew it back and let it snapshot it, and the arrow actually deflected off one of the pine boughs, and I hit it right through both lungs.
Yeah, I like that story because I have a similar experience with how I got introduced to hunting. I didn't have anyone in my immediate family that was a deer hunter either, and I had sort of the same experience walking into an archery shop, and a guy started kind of showing me how to shoot, and then just like you, I kind of started tagging along with some people, some older people. So it's very similar to your story. Now you just said a minute ago that Michigan is one of the most hunted states in the country, and you've killed a lot of nice deer. Most people that hear about hunting public land, they assume that there is hunters on top of each other and that the deer are highly pressured. How are you successful on public land when other people don't have the same success?
I get that question a lot, and I treat public land like this. I pretend, and when I say Michigan is the most heavily pressured, we have more bow hunters than any other state. We have 320 to 340,000 bow hunters over here. But when I'm looking at public land, and I'm looking at it like everybody on this property is trying to kill me. So where are the only places on this public land that I may move during daylight hours? So that eliminates all areas that you can walk to. If you can walk to an area, I don't care if it's a mile back in the timber or whatever. In Michigan, there's going to be people back there if it's walkable. So I never, ever set up on public land in Michigan in a location that I can walk to in a standing up position. I don't care if there's 50 scrapes and 5,000 rubs. I won't hunt it because that sign, if it was made by a mature buck, was made during the security darkness. Yeah, there may be subordinate bucks, 1.5, 2.5-year-olds come in and visit it in the daytime, but I'm looking for an older class buck, and they just don't visit that stuff in places where they're vulnerable during daylight hours. So I'm only hunting places where where waders to go through cattails, you got to cross a river with waders or hip boots, or cross a lake with a canoe or a boat, crawl through autumn olive brush. You probably don't know what autumn olive is.
I don't think so.
Really nasty, heavy brush that just entangles everything. Yeah, and so it's really simple because when you go, public land pieces are typically pretty large as far as acreage. They're pretty large, and when I'm looking at an aerial, I can pretty much, and especially once I'm on foot, I usually will negate 90% of the public land. I don't even have to look at it because if it's open timber, it's wooded area, CRP fields, weeds, pine groves that are open underneath. I won't even waste my time looking there. That's a waste of my time because I'm not going to kill mature buck. Ain't going to happen in Michigan.
So you can eliminate it just looking at the map.
I can eliminate it just by knowing the ease of access.
Right.
A lot
that makes
of
sense.
times you can't really, that was kind of a misjudgment on my part. You can't really negate something by looking at an aerial because a lot of times when you look at aerials, most of the time when you look at aerials, you'll see tree canopies. So you don't know what's underneath the tree canopy. You know, if it's nasty, heavy security cover, understory brush under there, yeah, there's a chance of some daytime movement if it's got really heavy security cover. But typically, when you're looking at timber and it's got a heavy canopy, it doesn't allow enough sunlight to grow a lot of heavy cover. Right. So I'm looking for places where there's rivers, where I have to physically cross the river for access. I can't come in from the other side because it's just too big of a parcel. Or I have to cross a river with waders, cross a lake. I just looked at a piece yesterday. I just drove to a ramp on a big parcel of public land, and I saw it on the map. It's relatively new to public land in Michigan. It just got purchased a few years ago. So I went down to the ramp, and I mean, I had to drive a mile and a half back in the woods with my minivan through potholes and chuckles and stuff. But I could get to it. It wasn't that bad. And there's no doubt that's something I'm going to go scout probably in the next 2 weeks. I'll take a kayak or my Radisson canoeing across there, because it looked like all of the timber through that mile and a half I'm driving through the public land was open timber. I mean, anybody could walk anywhere through there. There was some security cover here and there, small patches, but there's no way that was going to be a place where a 3.5-year-old or older buck was going to move during daylight hours. So I know once I go across that lake, it looked like I could see a little oak ridge back over there. Mm-hmm. You know, this time of year, I could just tell by the shapes of the trees that they were oaks. And I didn't see a whole lot of other oaks in the open timber. So I'm assuming once I go across there and it butted up, you could also tell that that oak ridge dropped down into a marsh. You know, the back of the lake was a marsh area. That could be a spot that could be very easily, you know, someplace that might have a mature buck bedding down in that marshy grass by the edge of the lake and coming up into those oaks, you know, in the evening to feed. So I'm definitely going to check that out. But that's the type of areas you have to look for. If you want to separate yourself from the other people, you have to work harder than they do. Most people are not willing to put the work ethic in to do that. My son Joe and I yesterday, we prepped a new location. It took us 7 hours, and that was with a chainsaw. 7 hours. I was dead. I was totally wasted by the end of that day. Chainsaw. This was on private land. This was a 20-acre parcel of private. We took the chainsaw, we cut a bunch of pines down. We blocked about 40 yards of an area where there was 2 or 3 runways going through there. We blocked it so they had to come back and come within the 25-yard distance of my shooting capability. And we just did a lot of work like that. And from the tree that I prepped, there was 2 scrapes, and I had to actually cut several pine trees down just to shoot to those scrapes. So, and that's one of the cool things about postseason scouting and location preparation this time of year, is when you do all that stuff this year, you know, this time of year, all of the routine changes you make, you know, by altering their runways to come closer and by cutting trees, all the visual changes you make, by fall, it'll just be natural to the deer. You know, you go in during preseason, which is what most people do, is go preseason scout prep locations. You're making a visual right then and there that deer are going to notice, because everything's in full foliage, and they're going to notice that visual change. And also, it's going to be hot in preseason. You're going to sweat. So I don't care what kind of scent control you have, you're going to leave odor, and mature deer are going to notice that after you leave, and could very potentially alter around that or turn those bucks nocturnal before season opens.
So you usually prep the spots that you've chosen to hunt like postseason this time of year?
Always, not usually. 95%. Once in a while, if I pick up a new piece of property or find a new area of public land, somebody tells me about something and I go check it out and it's in the summer or maybe August, as late as August, I may go look at it and prep something. But as far as 95% of all of my scouting, location preparation is done by the end of this month, by the end of April, or the year.
You've said before that you hunt from a saddle. Does that mean that you prep the tree? I mean, you have it ready to go, so when hunting season rolls around, you can just go straight there? There's nothing else you have to do?
Yes, that's exactly correct. I'll prep. Obviously, on private land, I'm going to prep shooting lanes. Even on public land, a lot of times, because I'm so far back in, I'm not worried about I'm not worried about somebody coming back there and finding me. Nobody's going to cross rivers to find me to give me a ticket. So I'll even clear out some semblance of a shooting lane, nip a branch here, nip a branch there for a shooting lane being on public land. But the cool thing about a saddle, it's got many advantages over any conventional tree stand. It's not even close. But with a saddle, I can have 40 to 50 locations prepped coming into a fall, and I can walk to any one of them and jump up in the tree with my saddle at any time. Nobody's going to steal it. Nobody's going to hunt from it. I can shoot 360 around any tree. Weighs 2 pounds. It's all made out of fabric. It's never going to creak when I make a movement. And it's, for $300, I'm still hunting out the same saddle I bought in 1981. So, and it cost me $100 back then. I've got lots of friends now that have gotten into saddle. Saddle hunting is becoming pretty big, and everybody's selling their tree stands. Once you hunt out of a saddle a few times and you get comfortable with it, you won't even look at a tree stand.
Yeah, I don't think it would be possible to go as deep as you go if you're carrying a climbing stand or dragging some type of big tree stand. It wouldn't be possible. That's probably why that gives you an advantage over other hunters.
That's a huge advantage. The noise factor and the cumbersome. It's not so much the weight. Lone wolf makes 6-7 pound stands, and they're relative. They're aluminum, but they still have a big frame. And when you're hunting back in heavy security cover and crossing stuff and boats and canoes and crawling through brush, to get back where a mature buck may move during daylight hours, and you're carrying your bow, you got a backpack on, and you're carrying a tree stand, and you're carrying sticks or whatever. Most tree stand guys are using sticks. I'm a tree step guy. It's just too cumbersome. You can't do it. It's not like watching Michael Waddell walk down a nice, pristine, clean 2-track with a climbing stand on and jump up in a tree in a nice open timber and shoot a 150-inch buck. That is so far out of reality from pressure property. I mean, that doesn't even make sense to me. So,
right.
When you're carrying heavy stands and you're brush, you can't have that stuff because you can't move through the brush. You just can't do it. It's impossible. You're catching up on everything.
Yeah, I think you mentioned these TV shows and stuff. A lot of people make that mistake, and that's watching, and I've done it myself, and that's watching these shows and trying to take what you see and applying it to the, where we hunt, and it doesn't work out. It never works out that way. It's really unrealistic.
To a very high degree.
Yeah.
It's extremely unrealistic. Those guys, to me, those guys are actors. They're selling entertainment. I think 50% of the bow hunters in the country, given them the opportunity to hunt on the exact same properties, could do every bit as good as any of those TV guys. I don't think they're exceptional hunters. I think they have exceptional opportunities. And I think if other people could hunt those micromanaged areas they hunt, where there's, 15 monster bucks on a piece of property. So obviously, percentages are going to put it in your favor to kill a big buck in a short period of time. I think a lot of hunters could easily match what they're doing, but I think if they had to go and hunt heavily pressured properties and public lands, they, and I'm not just going to say just public lands, because public land in Kansas and Missouri and Iowa and Nebraska, Wisconsin, Minnesota, those are states that they don't get beat up like the Carolinas or Georgia or New York or Pennsylvania or Virginia or West Virginia or Michigan. They just don't get the kind of pressure. And so it's just totally different, So you could go to public land in those Midwestern states, the Iowas, Kansas, Nebraska, and you could be pretty successful. I've done it. I've done it for years, just going out of state, hunting on knock-on doors in public land for 1 week hunts. God, I'll go to Kansas, and in a week, I'll see 12 to 18 Pope and Young bucks. Different Pope and Young bucks. I won't see 18 Pope and Young bucks in Michigan in a 10-year time frame. In 10 years of hunting all season, wow. I will not. I probably won't see 12. I haven't seen a buck I would shoot in Michigan in 3 seasons. I have not seen a Pope and Young buck in Michigan in 3 years. And that's hunting all season. I can't go to Kansas unless I stay inside my minivan for 7 days, or Iowa, without seeing a Pope and Young buck. If I walk outside of the van for 20 minutes, I'm going to see a Pope and Young buck if I'm out in the timber area. And they move differently out there. They move in open areas. There's not the pressure. There's lots of mature bucks. They compete a lot heavier for breeding rights. Your rattle antlers, 50% of the time, you're going to get a response. They reply to everything. It's just a totally different hunting those deer out there because there's so damn many of them, and they've been allowed to pass by hunters with no consequences while they're growing to maturity because most people that hunt out there don't shoot small bucks.
Yeah.
So they obviously tolerate a lot more human activity, more human odor, and places where there's heavy pressure, they don't tolerate anything or they get killed. It's that simple.
You said you sit all day long. Does it put your legs to sleep at all? I'm just curious.
No. It depends on how you hunt out of one. A lot of these YouTube videos you watch with saddle guys, they don't know how to use saddles very well. So if you are standing, what you see a lot on YouTube now is you see guys in a saddle standing on a platform, and they're pretty much in a standing position. And that's not the way you're supposed to hunt out of a saddle, because anytime you got your legs straight, it puts your body farther away from the tree, makes you more apt to get picked by deer. So proper way to hunt out, and it also makes your feet better because you're putting all your weights on your feet. Saddle has a seat because you're supposed to sit in it. That's where your ass goes. And when you're hunting properly from a saddle, your knees should be bent about 45 degrees, and most, probably 80% of your weight should be in the saddle seat, and maybe 20% of your weight on your feet. So, most of your weight's in your butt. It's like sitting in a chair like we're doing right now. It's not a big deal. I can do that all day. But if you're hunting out of a saddle and you're standing where your legs are straight, yeah, your saddle is going to put some pressure on your femur artery under your butt, and it's also going to make your feet sore if you're standing on steps or standing on the facing of the front edge, leading edge of a platform, because you've just got a small little thing across there, and you got the whole weight of your body on a small edge. So that's going to make that part of your foot sore. But if you want to hunt out of it properly, put more of your weight in your butt. And that's the cool thing about a saddle. It has an adjustment in front of you. So at any point in time, let's say you were standing. If you're standing in a saddle where your body is kind of, upright like this, leaning away from the tree, and your legs are straight and your feet are getting sore, all you got to do is let out a little bit of lead, lengthen your lead a little bit, and that's going to put you down into a sitting position now where you've got most of your weight in your butt and less on your feet. And then if you want to if your butt gets sore and you want to be more in a standing position, you just take that part of the lead and pull it back up. So it pulls your body back up higher. So now you're in a standing position. And also I have a signature saddle out. It's called the Eberhardt signature saddle, sold through Tether, and it's a 2-panel saddle. So with a 2-panel saddle, you can adjust the seat however you want it. So it's got 2 6-inch panels, and you can overlap them to have a 6-inch seat, or you can you can pull them apart. You can have a 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 16, 18. You can put one of the panels up into your lower back, but the inner panel always stays under your butt all the time. So with a 2-panel saddle, you've got all the adjustability in the world to change how you're sitting, comfort. There's nothing more comfortable than a 2-panel saddle, and there's nothing more versatile than a 2-panel saddle. I'm getting ready to release. I have a YouTube channel called Eberhardt Outdoors, and probably in the next 2 weeks, I've got about a 22-minute video on my signature saddle. I've been pretty slack. It came out last October, and it's done very, very well. But I've been so busy on my regular job, I really haven't had time to make and post a video on just my saddle. So this is going to be a 22-minute video on introducing you to the different parts of the saddle, how mine functions, me getting in a tree, showing how the seat's adjustable while I'm in a tree in a hunting situation. It's going to go through the whole thing on an Eberhardt signature saddle. And I haven't posted anything like this yet, but it's going to be a complete 20-some minute video on just the Eberhardt signature saddle. And it's long overdue because I should have done that back in October when it was released.
How much does a saddle cost?
But that's going to be on Eberhardt Outdoors.
How much does one use?
Just the saddle.
or
Alone,
everything that you would need to set up a tree and to hunt?
$300. $300 will get you the saddle and the lead strap and a safety strap, and that's all you need to hunt. That's all I use. Now you're going to use, if you hunt out of a hang-on or a climber?
Usually a climber, a couple ladder stands.
Okay. Most guys that hunt out of hang-ons, you know, when you're hunting out of a saddle, you're going to use the same exact climbing apparatuses as you would with a hang-on. So you can use sticks, strap-on steps for public land, screw-in steps, so whatever. But as far as the saddle, if you were going to buy my Eberhardt signature saddle, just the saddle alone is $189 on Tether's website. But you have to have a tree tether, which is basically what's connected to the tree. And then you also have to have a safety belt. They call it alignment belt. So when you are hunting from a saddle, you are 100% all of the time connected to the tree. You cannot fall out of the saddle. It's literally, you have to be a really dumb person and make an effort to jump out of the saddle, because the way it's designed, you can't fall out of the saddle. So when you get to the tree, you put on the safety lineman rope, and it goes around, it hooks to one side of your saddle, goes around the tree, and there's a carabiner, and it hooks to a lineman loop on the other side. And then it's got an adjustment on it, so you can adjust the length of the rope around the tree to the tree diameter. And that allows you to climb the tree, just like you see those guys climbing telephone poles with a rope on the other side. You know, that allows you to lean back in your saddle and put steps or sticks on. You got both hands free while you're going up the tree to prep the tree while you're going up it. Or if it's already pre-prepped, you know, you just put that safety rope on and go up the tree on your pre-prep sticks or whatever, you spikes or tree steps. Once you get up at the top and you're on your either platform or your ring of steps, because you should have a ring of steps all the way around the tree so you can easily move around the tree in any direction, to hide behind the tree or to shoot in any direction. Once you get up to the top, you still have your safety rope around the tree once you're standing on your platform or your ring of steps. And then you hook up your tree tether, which is basically your lead strap. That's what's going to connect to the tree and come down to the front of your saddle. And once you get that hooked up, that's what you're going to be hunting from. Once you get that hooked up, then you disattach the safety belt and put it in your pack and hunt. And then once you get ready to get back down the tree, you take your safety belt back out of the pack, put it on, wrap it around the tree, connect it to the other side. Then you disconnect your tree tether, which is what you're attached to the tree with when you're hunting. You disattach that, put that in your pack, and now you go back down the tree with the safety belt around the tree, and you can adjust it for the diameter of the tree as you're going up or down.
Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about scent control, and I've been watching your videos and I'm reading through some stuff that you've sent me, and I really think that you've cracked the code on how to beat a whitetail's nose with the techniques that you implement. And I know at one time you hunted the wind, but I've heard you say that now you pay no attention to the wind. What made you change, your technique?
Well, you're always, if you're really into deer hunting, like I am, you're always looking to improve. That's why I bought my first saddle in 1981. I bought a saddle when nobody knew what the hell they were. I saw a bunch of straps in a plastic bag in a store. Nobody even that worked in the store knew what a saddle was. But I bought it because the picture on the front looks kind of cool. Here's a guy hanging from a tree, like you'd see a guy in a Consumer Power hanging on a telephone pole, facing the tree, strapped to the tree, and he could move around the tree. That just looked unique to me, and it was a pound and a half versus back then, a climbing stand was 20 pounds. Hang-ons were made out of steel back then, and they were 15 pounds. So I just could see the advantage. And then when ScentLock came out, I really didn't think it would work. I paid 100% attention to wind direction for my first 35 years of hunting. And there were places I quit setting up hunting locations. I quit hunting sides of ridges. I quit hunting in saddles down in low ground. I quit hunting field edges. just because I wouldn't even prep those locations because wind swirling and wind thermals would always bust me. It just got to the point where why am I even coming here when the wind's just changing every 5 minutes? I have no control over getting winded. So, when I was paying attention to the wind, it got to the point where I was only hunting places where the winds were going to, if the wind was out of the west, I would set up for west wind and I'd set up in places where I didn't have to worry about thermals and swirling winds. So, but then when ScentLock came out, I knew a lot about activated carbon. I was very familiar with what activated carbon did and how absorptive it was. And it was used in every military in the world for chemical warfare suits. And it's used in EMT and hospitals for absorbing poisons out of patients that swallow poisons. It's used for water purification. NASA uses it in their space suits. It's used in literally thousands of industries and by worldwide governmental bodies. And so I knew the power of activated carbon and the capacity of it. I just didn't think it would be possible to make a liner and keep all the carbon uniformly through the suits to where it would absorb the human odor. And I bought a suit, and it took me about 3 years because the information ScentLock put out as far as care and using it, proper care instructions, I felt was very poor. So I read up on just basically how to deabsorb the activated carbon that had been used. And I kind of learned on my own. I kind of learned just like I did bow hunting.
And how long did you say that took you to develop, to figure out how to care for it?
3 years.
In 3 years?
Yeah, because people wash it. People go out with their ScentLock suits and they've got a backpack that they've had for 10 years. They've never washed the backpack and they get winded. Even if their suit was cared for perfectly, they still get winded because they got a backpack that's got it like a human scent wick, next to them that they've never washed. Or somebody like yourself. I mean, you're sitting there with a beard, with a beard. If you got an exposed beard or you got exposed hair like the TV guys, there's a lot of TV guys. They may wear ScentLock jacket and ScentLock pants because they're sponsored by ScentLock and ScentLock gloves, but they'll wear a logo hat, camo logo hat, similar to what you're wearing, and they may have an exposed beard. So their face is exposed, and they got face paint on their face trying to look cool.
Yeah.
That blows your whole thing. 40% of your odor comes out of your head. Your hair follicles, for the most part, is where you get most of your odor.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the beard, and I know you said that you will, if you have any facial hair, you shave it, you cut your hair shorter than normal. Is there any way, because I do have a beard, is there any type of mask or anything that would completely kill the scent?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you buy you have to have a ScentLock. That's more important than the jacket and the pants. You have to have the ScentLock head cover with the drop-down face mask. So the face mask would cover your beard, and that would be fine. When I watch the TV guys and they got their hair hanging down below their logo hat and they got all the other ScentLock stuff on it, exposed face. To me, they're just a joke. Or they spritz with Hunter's specialty scent killer with sodium bicarbonate and water. That is just a farce. I mean, that is just a farce. That is not going to get rid of your odor.
So using ScentLock properly takes away the need to use any kind of spray or cover scent.
Correct. I never spray anything. If I'm going to wipe down my bow or something, I'll buy Pampers or Huggies hypoallergenic baby wipes. Basically, they're scent-free wipes, but you can get 80 of them in the grocery store for $2.99, as opposed to paying $10 for 20 of them in a sporting goods store. And I'll wipe down with those. And I keep those in my vehicle all the time. They're right up in the passenger side floor of the front seat. So before I park my minivan and then I slide between the two seats to get in the back where all my stuff's at, I'll wipe my hands off with one of those scent-free wipes, and then I'll put my ScentLock gloves on. And then when I dress up, I'm using a ScentLock backpack. I'll dress in the back and then I'll step right out the side and pretty much ready to go. But I pay zero attention to wind direction. Absolutely zero attention to wind direction.
Now, when you started using scent lock, you actually put it to the test and really tried to get winded. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I can. Actually, when I got to the point where I was like, and this is into my third season, you know, I'm learning how to take care of it. You don't wash it. You got to deabsorb it in the dryer. You don't wash it because that breaks it down. But I was getting to the point where I was having a lot of deer. I mean, all the deer I'm seeing that are coming downwind of me, they don't have a clue. And when I hunted for 35 years paying attention to wind, you know, deer came downwind of me all the time. They don't always do what you expect. And I would get busted quite frequently. Even though I'm hunting 25 feet, 30 feet up in a tree, I was still getting busted. So I got to the point where, man, this stuff's awesome. Now I'm going to put it to the ultimate test. I'm going to go on this public land and I'm going to hunt this spot where I know this big mature doe is coming out. You know, she was a 4 or 5 year old matriarch doe. She's coming out every day and she's going from a swamp on public land, coming through this area of kind of light security cover and going out into a hayfield on private property, butting up to the public. So I waited for a south wind. And I used to rep for Mossy Oak Apparel back when Mossy Oak first came out. So I had on a chamois Mossy Oak coverall. And chamois is just brushed cotton. So it was a cotton coverall, which is permeable, allows airflow. So the first hunt, I actually hunted in I think it was the first hunt I used scent lock. I can't remember which one it was. I think the first hunt I used scent lock, and a doe came out about an hour and a half before dark. She's coming down that runway, and she just was browsing. You know how deer will just browse through the woods, nipping leaves, and she's heading up to that field. And she never batted an eye. You know, when she got directly downwind, because the wind was out of the south, and this runway was like 20 yards to the north of me. When she got directly downwind, she never batted an eye. She had her fawns with her, and they didn't do anything. She just kept browsing and meandered right on through like nothing ever happened. The next day was the exact same wind direction. I got in the tree with my Mossy Oak chamois clothing on, and when that doe got downwind of me, same wind direction, same temperature, every humidity was all the same. As soon as she got downwind of me, she stopped like somebody hit her with a sledgehammer. And she just stopped and just turned and looked right in my direction and, you know, saw me up in this popple tree. And she started snorting and blowing. And within probably 10 seconds, it seemed like a minute, but probably within a few seconds, she turned around, ran back into the swamp. And then so that was a physical test that I tried to do, and it worked. It proved to me, you know, this doe didn't win me with scent lock on, and she winded me immediately with my Mossy Oak suit on. Then another time I was hunting on the edge of a cattail marsh, and deer were coming through these tamaracks, heading in. They were going to bed in this cattail marsh. It was a dry fall, and as they were going by me, they were coming to me from downwind. So they were coming in on the downwind side of me. They went by my tree, and there was about a 5-yard buffer of kind of tall grass before it went into the cattails. And one doe, because I was in a tamarack, and the tamaracks up here in Michigan in the fall, they don't have a lot of heavy needles. They're brown needles, and they're kind of open. It's pretty easy to see through them. And I wasn't in a group of them. I was in an individual tamarack, so I had kind of a sky background. And this one doe picked me. She saw me up in the tree, and I'm sitting like a freaking statue. I am not moving a muscle, and I had no intentions on shooting this deer, but I'm like, okay, I still don't want him to spook and blow, because then that's going to kill a chance of a buck coming by, you know, later. And I'm sitting there like a stone, and after a few minutes, she's just staring at me, and she's just lightly stomping her foot on the ground. And now the other two does were paying attention. There was 3 does all together, and I think 4 fawns. And all 3 of those does, because she was looking at me, they started looking up in the tree. They'd see a blob, you know. And back then, Mossy Oak breakup was like a bear in a tree. You know, at a distance, everything looked black, even
Yeah.
though it was camouflage. It was a real tight, dark pattern. And all three of those does circled around to the back down around to the downwind side of the tree, which is actually the way they came in from. And they got their noses in the air. They are trying to win me, and they did not. And they finally all meandered back under the tree and went into the cattail marsh and went about their thing. And I have to say I have at least 50 deer to 100 deer downwind of me every year would be probably on the light side. Michigan has a lot of deer. We just don't have a lot of mature bucks. So to say, and because I don't pay attention to wind, I have deer downwind of me all the time. I just don't get busted. Once in a blue moon, I'll get picked, especially once the foliage is down. I might get picked by a deer that sees my body profile up in a tree. But as far as getting winded, I don't get winded.
Now where I'm at here in North Carolina, it can be like really hot in early bow season, and sweating is really unavoidable if used correctly. With the scent lock, is the scent lock as effective in the hot weather as it is in cool weather?
I can't really answer that because I don't hunt in that weather. I think if I hunted there, I'm pretty sure I would figure it out. I can't fathom it wouldn't be, but it would be more of a challenge without a doubt. Early season when it's 80 degrees and you go out, you're just going to sweat. That's all there is to it. And even though the scent lock it absorbs anything under your body, you're still going to, even your face that's exposed, your eyes and your ears, you're going to have perspiration on your face. So, and I've hunted in warm weather like that. And I can remember one time in Michigan where it was 80 degrees and I was hunting by some apple trees and I had 3 small bucks come by and they were together. It was early season. So they were still in this small bachelor group and they winded me. I mean, and I was doing everything I could to wipe my face. You know, I carried the scent-free wipes in a plastic bag and I would every 20 minutes get one out and wipe my face, pull my face cover down, wipe my face off with that, put it in a Ziploc bag and a different Ziploc bag and then pull my stuff back up. But I was just perspiring too much from my exposed face. And it's not like they wind you. Those bucks didn't wind me like what would have happened years ago when I was, hunting the wind exclusively and getting winded quite frequently. They just, something wasn't right. And they didn't really spook and stomp and snort and run off. One of them just felt like something wasn't right. And they turned around and went back in the direction they came from. But they were year and a half old bucks. So for me to sit here and say, yeah, if you're hunting in 80 or 90 degree days and sweating your butt off, that, yeah, you could do it. I can't sit here and honestly say that, but I think if I had to hunt in those situations, I would figure something out.
Well, John, I appreciate you coming on here and talking with me, and I don't want to keep you here all day. Where if I wanted to go look into buying one of your saddles, where can I go to find that?
Tethered. If you just Google Tethered, TETHRD, Tethered Nation, I think it is. But if you just Google TETHRD saddles, they've got a Menace and they've got a Phantom and they've got my Eberhardt signature saddle. And they're the biggest player in the industry on saddles. They've got lineman ropes, 2 different lineman ropes, 2 different safety belts, 11 millimeters, 8 millimeters. They got rope bands, they got knee pads, they got pouches to put stuff in. They've got everything. And if you wanted to get any information about me, if you just Google my name, I've got a website, I got a YouTube channel, all that stuff should pop up. And I've got quite a lot of information on saddle hunting on my YouTube channel. If you looked up any of the shows showing the advantages of saddle hunting. I just haven't done a good job at promoting my Eberhardt signature saddle, which in my opinion is the Cadillac of all saddles.
All right, John. Well, I appreciate it for giving me a little bit of time to come on here and talk to you.
Thank you, Jesse. It was my pleasure, and anytime.
All right. All right, folks. I appreciate you checking out this video. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and keep following Carolina Whitetails. I appreciate it.